Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of S32K Media. Today I'm going to be going over an in-depth tutorial on how to change your oil on a 2005 Acura TSX. I have basically all the tools right in front of me. You guys can't see it now because it's off camera, but let me just take you through each tool and what I use to change the oil. And it's super easy on this car. It might take a little time to get used to because there's certain stuff that you have to take off, but other than that, it's fairly basic. First thing you're going to need is a oil drain pan. So you're going to need this to drain the oil. They sell these at Walmart or at Amazon. You can get these for like 10-15 bucks. Mine has a cap. You can just drain it off and just cap it off. Make sure you recycle your oil. I like to use a magnetic pan to keep all my bolts and washers in one place so I don't lose them. This is a washer that you're going to be using for your oil drain bolt, and this is the exact same washer that you can use on an S2000. So S2000s and TSXs use the exact same washer, so it's pretty good. You don't have to buy different sizes. You are going to need a 17 millimeter socket. This is to take off the drain bolt, and you are also going to need a 10 millimeter socket, and these are two different sizes. I'll show you guys why in a bit, but fairly basic, so make sure you get those. I also use this oil removal tool. You can get this on Pepboys or Amazon for like $5 or $6. Basically, it goes onto the oil filter and then you just wrench it off, take it off. Sometimes you can tighten it by hand or loosen it by hand, but if not, if it's tightened too much, then you have to use this to take it off. So I like to use Amsoil. I've used Amsoil in all my cars. I've used Amsoil in my S2000, in my RXX Type S, in my TSX, even in my Civic. Amsoil is more on the higher end of expensive oils, but I think there's a lot of research and a lot of test results that can back up, and there's data that proves that Amsoil is superior. So there's a membership you can go online and get, I think for a year, and you get discounted prices. But this is the filter for the TSX. It's the EA15K13. We'll just take it out of the box. Looks just like this, you know. Pretty good quality, pretty good build. So put that away, and you are gonna need 5 quarts of 5W30 oil. I use the Signature Series. It's the full synthetic. On the TSX, I think you need about 4.9 to 5 quarts, but I just dump it in all 5 quarts, and I've done that for the past, I think, year or so, and I've never had any problems. TSX doesn't really burn too much oil, so I think you're good to go. I usually buy about 6 quarts just in case. I keep one on the side in case I need to top it off. I'm driving like long distances, but yeah, you're gonna need 5 of these. You're gonna need 2 jack stands to jack up the car. These are just basic Craftsman ones, and you can't really see it off to the side, but my 2-ton jack is right here. So yeah, let's get started. Alright guys, go ahead and locate the jack points on the TSX. On the front left and front right, there's a jack point right below the door. Go ahead and locate that and jack up the car. Make sure you go at your own speed. You don't have to rush this part. So basically jack the car up, put the jacks right below the jack point. Make sure they're all stabilized before you lower the car, and do the same thing for the other side. And you might want to be careful on this part because you don't want to go underneath when it's not stable. Now grab your 10 millimeter socket, locate the bolt, and you're going to remove that to get access to the oil drain plug. Go ahead and remove that. I just loosen it by hand and just use the socket to loosen it. Now go ahead and just grab your oil pan and loosen up the drain bolt. This is a 17 millimeter socket, so make sure you have that on hand. Sometimes if you can't loosen it by hand, if it's too tight, you're gonna get a you're gonna want to grab a rubber mallet and just whack it, and then it'll come loose. But in this case, I hand tight all my engine oil drain plugs, so it's not that tight and it's fairly easy to take off. So go ahead and just loosen it up, lefty loosey. And once it's loose, go ahead and use your hand to just loosen everything, and then make sure you catch the oil. Kind of position your oil pan so that you can catch it, so that it falls down and not so it doesn't go all over the ground. Here we go. Now this process might take a little while, so you're gonna want to just make sure that you watch the stream so it doesn't go in the ground, but you're gonna wait about, I guess, 5-10 minutes for it to drip down all the way. You can start putting back the drain bolt once it starts dripping very slowly. As you can see, I just sped up the video here. So yeah, at this point it's just almost gone. So you wipe off the bolt with your cloth. In this case I use a microfiber cloth, and then just put everything back on. Make sure you change the washer too, and they're fairly cheap. You can get those from Honda or like from Amazon or eBay. Put it back on, and then go ahead and hand tighten everything. I usually do like a full turn until I feel it start to get tight, and then I do another half turn until it's snug. You don't want to do it too hard because you're gonna crush the washer and then it's gonna leak, but you don't want to do it too soft either, because if you do, it's also gonna leak. So you kind of want to find a middle ground. Some people recommend using the correct torque specs. I don't know what those are at the top of my head, but I've hand tightened this multiple times in the past and I've never had any issues. So do whatever you feel you're most comfortable with. Now grab your 3/8 socket and grab the oil removal tool, and go ahead and locate the oil filter on the TSX. In this case, it's kind of tricky because you have to go a little bit more into the car and look up directly, and it's kind of the oil filter is actually pointing out. So you're gonna have to like look at that right here. If you guys look at it, it's the black oil filter right there. Go ahead and just loosen that with the filter, and on the TSX, once it's loosened, oil will go everywhere. I've done this multiple times, so there's no way to really prevent this unless you put like a plastic bag or a paper bag up there to kind of grab it. But do the best you can to catch all the oil, and then once you're done, go ahead and just grab a towel and just wipe the ground and clean it up. But yeah, and usually just dump all the oil after I take off the filter and put it into the oil pan. And for this part, I use the Amsoil oil filter. You can buy this as a combo with the oil. I have the 1-year membership with them, so I get oil at a discount price. But these are about $13 or $14 after the discount. The good thing about Amsoil is that when you get oil, it tells you exactly what filter you need. So go ahead and just dab a little bit of oil on your finger. Like kind of lubricate the gasket between the oil filter, so when it attaches back onto the car, it doesn't like stick. And pour a little bit of oil into the filter, not too much, and go ahead and just slide back underneath the car and put the oil filter back where it belongs. You can either hand tighten this or use the oil filter and use the correct torque spec. Like I said, I've done this multiple times, hand tightened, and I never had any issues on all my cars. Once that's in there, go ahead and just jack the car back up, take the jack stands off, and then lower everything. You're going to want to do this step before you start pouring the new oil back in the car. Now go ahead and grab the new oil, and we're going to pour in about 4.5 quarts by hand. And then we're going to start up the car, and then we're going to measure the dipstick and then pour in the rest of the oil. I usually use about 5 quarts, and I've never had any issues. TSXs might burn oil or might not. It depends on your car, but my car rarely burns any oil. I think it burns about like half a quart every time I change oil, and I do it every 5,000 miles. So make sure you put the cap back on, because if you don't and you start the car, oil's going to shoot out everywhere. So start up the car for about 5 or 6 seconds. Let the oil circulate through the car, through the system, and then shut it off again. Once you shut it off, go back and measure the car. Make sure the dipstick, the oil level is between the 2 dots, and
I took a picture for you guys right there. And once it's full, it looks just like that. So once you do that, top off the oil, the last half quart, and you should be good to go. I've always used 5 quarts, like I said, and never had any issues. I know in the forums and on the manual it says about 4.8 or 4.9, I think, but I changed the filter, so I always top it off with 5. Yeah, make sure you measure the oil just to be safe, you know. And after you're done, go ahead and put the cap back on, tighten it up, and you're good to go. And that's it, guys. Fairly easy, very basic. Hope you guys can get this through without any issues. I usually document all of my stuff that I do in the car, and it's at 174,558. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and thanks for watching. Subscribe. Thank you.